UFC Fight Night. Mackenzie Dern versus Angela Hill. Guys, I shouldn't have opened my big mouth last week talking bad about that card because this card pales in comparison to that one, just in terms of name value. This card really seems to be lacking. Despite that, I think there is some potential for some really exciting fights that could save this card. So due to sort of some of these undercard matchups being just not the most interesting, I'm only going to be covering the featured prelim and the main card here. I also, hopefully you can't tell because I'm got a crappy iPhone mic that I'm using, but I am coming off of being sick, so apologies if I sound all nasally and stuff. That is why. So without further ado, let's get right into the action. We're going to start with the featured prelim, which is Maheshate versus Borshchev. Slava Claus, they call him. He's got that Santa beard. Love that nickname. Maheshate is 1-1 in the lightweight division. Borshchev, on the other hand, is 1-2. Maheshate's the plus 130 underdog, with Borshchev being the minus 160 favorite in this one. Both guys coming off of losses. Borshchev's got back-to-back losses, and in both instances, these guys were just out-grappled, and that was really their downfall in both of their matchups. Borshchev's was in back-to-back losses to Mike Davis and Mark Diakise. Maheshate lost a fight to Rafa Garcia, which he really outdamaged Garcia and outclassed him on the feet, but Garcia was able to get out of some sticky situations by taking Maheshate down and controlling him, really showing that experience difference. Maheshate's only 23 years old. Borshchev, on the other hand, is a 30 or 31, I believe, a guy who comes from a striking background. I think is newer to MMA. And I think this is great matchmaking by the UFC. Two guys who have similar flaws. So logic would assume that this fight's going to take place on the feet. And I think this fight actually has the potential for Maheshate to show a difference in just MMA ability. Borshchev, older, I think he's a little more stuck in his ways. Maheshate, being the younger prospect, I think he's going to be working on his grappling a significant more, and I think he's just going to be the more all-around MMA fighter in this matchup. And I think Maheshate's got really underrated striking as well. He uses elbows really creatively. And Borshchev, on the other hand, if this was a kickboxing match, I would definitely bet the house on, because the guy definitely has some slick striking, but he is kind of one-dimensional in that way that he can be taken down and also doesn't have that takedown threat to open up the striking a little bit himself. So Maheshate, I think he's going to mix in the clinch and perhaps a couple takedowns here or there, and I think he finds a finish in this one. He's got really strong elbows, and if he doesn't find a finish, I think these guys are really going to go after each other, and there's going to be a lot of violence inflicted in this fight. That's just the nature of these two. If Borshchev touches you, you definitely feel it. So this one should actually be a really exciting fight, lots of fireworks, and I'm excited for it. But Maheshate is going to be the pick. I'm liking that plus sign. I am a sucker for plus signs. Next up is the first fight in the prelim, Diego Ferreira versus Michael Johnson. Diego Ferreira is 2-3 in his last 5 and is the minus 160 favorite in this one. Michael Johnson, 2-3 in his last 5, being a plus 130 underdog. Ferreira has been in there with some serious talent in the division. Lost to Gamrot, lost to Dariush in his past 3 fights. So it's not like he's losing to nobodies. He's losing to top contenders right now. So that's one thing to take into account. Michael Johnson, on the other hand, just soundly beat Diakise, and he did lose a decision to Malarkey, but I think that The judges were full of malarkey with that decision. I thought he definitely won that fight. Michael Johnson is really dangerous on the feet, and Diego Ferreira has been prone to getting KO'd. So if Michael Johnson can find a way to keep it standing and stuff a few takedowns, I think he can find Diego Ferreira's chin and end this one. These are two guys who are veterans of the game, been around a while, both on the tail ends of their career. But Michael Johnson kind of feels like he's been the same dude he always has been. Like he's prone to get finished or finish you. So with that being said, I think this is a somewhat advantageous matchup on the feet for him, and I think he'll find a way to get a finish KO'd in this fight. Next up is a welterweight fight. Andre Fialho versus Joaquin Buckley, who's making his welterweight debut. At least he hasn't fought in welterweight in his most recent fights. He's moving down from 185, where he was really small for 185. I mean, it was like almost comical in some of these matchups, especially versus like Imavov and stuff. Fialho is 2-3 in his last 5. All five of those fights taking place in 2022, which I think is very important to note. He was a guy who had a pretty hot start, lost the decision to Michel Pereira, but came back and got 2 KOs back-to-back before losing, getting pretty much pieced up by Jake Matthews and Muslim Salikov, KO'd in both of those fights. I think Fialho just did too much in 2022. 5 fights is an absurd amount, almost unheard of in the UFC. You just don't see guys fighting that often. Logistically, the guy's from Portugal, so that adds another element to, I don't know if he's going back and forth, but it's just a lot. And I think he was a different dude by the end of 2022 than he was at the beginning. And he hasn't fought since December or so, since the tail end of last year. Now he's going to be have like 5 months of rest. So I think he's going to come in looking a lot better than he has recently. Buckley, on the other hand, is going to test the waters at 170. He's a guy who had, without a doubt, a top 5 knockout in UFC, if not MMA history, with that spinning back kick. I don't even think there's really a name for it. And he's a guy who has kind of struggled keeping his momentum after that fight. He's dropped a few. He's off of back-to-back losses versus Imavov, as well as Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis was a fight that he really just got outclassed on the feet. Curtis, he kind of played right into Curtis's hands, got counter-struck. I think those two are boys also, so I think Curtis just had a total read on what Joaquin was going to do. So Joaquin is definitely an explosive striker, a guy who's got knockout power, but he can get coaxed into a brawl and kind of exchanging in the pocket. And I think that's kind of right where Fialho operates. And at plus 187 in this fight, or plus 190 or so for Fialho, I think if this gets to be a brawl, I think you're getting great value. Just the nature of all it takes is one punch, one exchange for a fight to end. And if it's a brawl, I would probably set the odds closer to even. So that's how I'm analyzing this. Fialho moneyline is going to be the pick here. I think he finds a way to get a finish in this one, but I wouldn't bet on it. I think there's already good odds for the moneyline play. I wouldn't get too greedy. So Fialho's the play. I think a lot of people are sleepy on him, but Joaquin's a dude who, you never really know what you're going to get. He always has that power to end a fight at any second. So this one should also be very entertaining. I do not see this going the distance. The next prelim we have is a strawweight fight between Emily Ducote and Loopy Godinez. Ducote is 1-1 in the UFC, was an Invicta champ beforehand, and she has a most recent loss to Angela Hill. Loopy, on the other hand, shares a loss to Angela Hill. She's 3-2 in her last 5. And I'm taking Loopy Godinez in this fight. I think she finds a way to leg kick her way to a decision. Ducote kind of had a deer in the headlights sort of effect versus Angela Hill. She got the pace put on her pretty much from start to finish. Got a unanimous decision put on by Angela Hill over her, in which case it seemed like she was kind of freezing at times, and she kind of sticks that front leg out and puts a lot of weight on it, so I can see Loopy taking advantage of that. She's got good leg kicks. Hails from Mexico, and Mexican fighters, especially Mexican female fighters, are up right now. They got a champ of their own, so not that that's really relevant, but these trends, I swear they exist. I don't got the numbers to back them, but that being said, Loopy Godinez is going to be the pick here. I don't see her really having the finishing ability to put Ducote out, but like I said, I think she's going to put the pace on her and coast her way to a victory. So I think whichever fighter sort of sets the tone for the fight and dictates where it takes place, I think they're going to get the win. Loopy is the one I anticipate doing that. And our co-main event is a middleweight fight, Edmen Shahbazyan versus Anthony Hernandez. Shahbazyan is 2-3 in his last 5 and is a plus 187 underdog. Hernandez, on the other hand, is a minus 225 favorite in this fight, and he's 4-1 in his last 5. He really has been on a tear. Shahbazyan is a young guy. He's only 25, came into the career when he was even in his earlier 20s and had some growing pains. Got beat a few times. Ended up getting 3 losses, racking up 3 in a row. But he's coming off of a win most recently in which he really was able to inflict a lot of pain on the feet, I guess you'd say, and found a way to get a finish in his most recent fight. He's a guy who's got KO power. He's got a lot of KOs under his belt despite being so young in his MMA career. And he's a guy who I think is definitely trending upwards. And on the other hand, you have Anthony Hernandez, who has had found a lot of success in this division lately. He's the guy who puts the pace on guys, which is pretty rare in the 185 division. I mean, I can't think of many other people who fight similarly to him. Maybe Albert Duraev or something, which is a possible matchup in the future between these two. But he's a guy who, with exceptional grappling, he usually wins all the grappling exchanges, and even as a sub over Rodolfo Vieira, who's one of the 5,000 BJJ world champs in the UFC. So clearly he's doing something right on the ground. So Hernandez is going to be the heavy favorite in this one. And I think the value that you're going to get with Shahbazyan, based on that, that's going to be the play. I think Shahbazyan, he has that wrestling background, and the biggest question mark for him is going to be gas tank. Hernandez has proven that he can put on the pace for 3 rounds, but at times he has slowed down a bit, and in those situations where he has to catch his breath, he really opens himself up to some big shots. So I see Shahbazyan finding a way to sort of fight the barrage of takedowns, keep it on the feet, and then when Hernandez needs to take a breather, I think Shahbazyan stuffs him up against the fence, gets his dirty boxing, knees, elbows, and puts Hernandez away. So Shahbazyan by finish is going to be the pick. and it's going to set him up for some very interesting matchups in the 185 division. And finally, we have our main event, Mackenzie Dern versus Angela Hill. Mackenzie Dern is 3-2 in her last 5. Angela Hill is 2-3. Mackenzie Dern is probably one of the most predictable fighters you're really going to find. You know what she's trying to do. She's trying to take you down. She's trying to smother you and submit you. Angela Hill has very solid striking, some of the best in the strawweight division, but hasn't really evolved as a mixed martial artist in terms of grappling as much as some other people. But she's definitely a trailblazer who literally, it feels like she's fought literally every female fighter in her division. She's game. She'll take on anyone, anywhere. So, I mean, you got to respect the hell out of that. But it feels like this matchup is very advantageous for Mackenzie Dern. Dern by submission is definitely the play here. I think it's very live. The grappling difference is just going to be overwhelming, and I don't think Angela Hill has the tools to keep this standing for 5 rounds. So that's a lot of time for Dern to find a submission. Dern did struggle most recently against Yan Xiaonan. She really wasn't able to take her down and keep her there, but Yan Xiaonan is right up there in title contention, and she's one of the more well-rounded fighters in the division. So I don't think Angela Hill has the defensive capabilities in terms of grappling that Yan Xiaonan has. And so Mackenzie Dern by submission is definitely going to be the pick here. Dern is also, it'd be a stretch to call her a cash cow, but you know that the UFC wants her to win. She's got like her name kind of popping a little bit. I'm sure she's got a bunch of followers on Instagram and stuff, you know, a bunch of thirsty MMA fanboys. So this fight will be a good, I was going to say tune-up fight. That's a little disrespectful to Angela Hill, but a good get-right fight, we'll call it, for Mackenzie Dern, so she can get right back in that top 5, top 10 contention race in the strawweight division. So that is going to be the pick, and that is the card, the main card in the featured prelim, that is. Let me know if you agree with these picks. Let me know if you guys have any crazy plays that you're super excited about, thoughts about the card in general. And with that, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the card, and that's it. Peace, y'all.